in the 2015 season, I had a couple of incidences that happened and really made me deal with, some other issues that were going on, basically my mental health. And in 2015, and again, understand this has been going on for a long time. My wife tried to tell me for many years, but she didn't get it. She's just a nurse, what do they know? And but it talked to me about my mental health, that, hey, you need to see somebody. I think you're dealing with some depression and stuff like that. And I ignored all that. And I didn't take care of that. And it almost took care of me. In 2015, we were playing out in upstate New York. After a loss that night, some things transpired. I was walking back to our hotel after the game and stopped on the bridge over the Oswego River. And really thought the best thing for everybody was, if I was just gone, the burden of me would be gone. And, I contemplated jumping on the bridge that night, and I did, but not because it was a bad idea, it just wasn't the right time. We were out in New York, that would cause more hassles. Had we been closer to Duluth, I don't know what would have happened. And then in the end of January 31st, I had an incident on the ice after a game where I kind of lost it, I did lose it. And got back in the locker room that night, and I was kind of in like a paralyzed state. I was non-functional. I sat with my head in my hands, stuff was going on. And Jackie McMillan, our women's coach, was in there, and she left and called my wife and said, you need to come over here. Something's going on with Mark. And she waited till everybody left. She came back in about the same time my wife did. And, that's when I didn't realize I needed help. I didn't really have a choice to get help.
Talk about the pressures that are inherent in sports, from the young athletes to coaches, to parents who are caught up in this machine.
There's these pressures that I think that these kids feel unnecessarily, and I think some of that comes from ourselves. As athletes, we always want to achieve, and we're pretty tough on ourselves a lot of times. Whenever I talk to kids, I say, how many of you are pretty good at beating yourselves up? And it's pretty common that we do, because we have high expectations. We want to do well, and then we can be very critical. And what are we doing it for? And so much of it gets in line of, we got to get a scholarship. You got to get into a good school. You got to make when you're younger, you got to get on this team. You got to be on the AA team. You got to be on the AAA AAU basketball team to go here. You have to play in this year-round sporting stuff, okay? And we're putting those on parents, put pressure on their kids, and kids feel that. Coaches, and I look back, and this is nothing against coaches, but I've been one for 33 years, and I'm going to be honest with you, like, I think I was successful on the ice and stuff like that, but I look back at a lot of the things I did, and I wasn't a good coach to a lot of people, because wasn't that I didn't try to be, but I didn't know what to look for. I didn't see certain things. I couldn't see them in myself. I certainly wouldn't see them in other people. And again, hockey coach 33 years, not the brightest bulb. A great example I have is there was a kid at practice one day, and I got on him, and he wasn't there. It's like, what's going on? You were off, and I got on him pretty hard because he was one of the better players. And I remember him coming into the office afterwards and saying, "Hey, coach, sorry, man, I was bad today. Yeah, I wasn't there." And but I would just want to let you know that right before practice, I found out my grandpa has cancer. Well, no kidding, you should be off. But if I would have asked why, and gone up and said, "Hey, what's going on? Why are you you look like you're not here today. Why?" He would have said, "You know what? I just found," and what I said, "Hey, you do what you need to do, man. If you need to leave, you don't have to be here."
Right.
Or would have just left him alone, But I didn't know. We know that we can't be successful on any of our sport environments if we're not good physically. If I have a twisted ankle, it's tough to play basketball or volleyball. It's tough to be a sprinter with a pulled hamstring, right? Well, we know that, but a ton of noise or bad thoughts or trauma, grief that we haven't dealt with, we don't think that that's not going to have an effect on our performance either. You know, that's where we have to start treating our mental health like our physical health.
On your website, you have in highlighted large font, more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversation. Reflect on that real quick.
Well, I think, and I always talk like, okay, we do this. If you send this out, or I do a podcast, right? I talk to those 100 kids, right? We didn't solve anything. We solved the problem, but I hope what it does is it starts the conversation. The kid goes home. You go home, or you go out after work, or you're in that work environment, and somebody says, "Hey, what was that you were doing?" I was having this conversation. Like, again, we start the conversation. We normalize it with people. So we talk about, we're gonna have tough times. What are you doing? It's nothing that we have to hide in the darkness. That we need to get it out there. We need to know that it's okay to talk about it. Let's normalize this. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it. The more we normalize it, hopefully people will be able to reach out for the help, and we can stop these really dire things from happening.